What's up, everybody? How's it going? It's the day after Thanksgiving, and I thought this is a perfect time to make a video of my audio center, rather. I'm an audiophile. I just love music. In fact, I came up with Audioiter. It's the Latin for, you know, audio plus iter, which is journey. And it's more of an audio journey than just a love of audio. And to me, music is it encompasses so many different facets of my life. And so this is my garage hole, if you will. This is where I have all my secondary setup stuff. And so I wanted to run through it all, and I was going to give you guys, for all of you audio fans out there, because I mentioned I was going to talk about my second amp, and I was going through a few different things, cleaning up the garage out here, and I came across these two freaking tower speakers, the RTR speakers. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and go through it. Just thought I'd give a warning first. This is strictly for music people. So, and maybe a couple tips that I've found about buying used audio equipment, if that's something that you're into. First off, this is my PV bass head, and this is an Eagleworks cabinet, which was made in Portland by Eagleworks was a Portland company, but those are actually 410s in there, and those are Ampeg speakers, so those things rock. And I played in a band with my brother for a while, and I just brought it out. I haven't used it in a bit. And same with this turntable over here, which this morning I got up and I said, you know, I have a pair of DJ turntables. I have not, I know that one of them's totally messed up, and I was like, the other one's having issues with grounding. I'm just going to bring it out and try to fix it. And so I did. It had an issue for a moment. I put a new cartridge head on there. This is just a Stanton DJ cartridge on here right now. But after I fiddled with it for a little bit, I got it to work. And this is, you know, next, these are made by Stanton. Stanton makes DJ turntables. This is basically the same as like the 1200 series, if you will. It's a entry-line budget DJ turntable. The one I have in there in the house, which I didn't show before, was it's a Yamaha 750, and it's actually a P750. It's a pretty awesome turntable, and so this is kind of my secondary table now for backup. So it's good. It's got a nice heavy platter on it. And over here, I guess I should show you this, which is my latest project that I'm working on. This is a one I took in. It's a Rotel RP3000, and there's not, the whole bottom's missing. It's missing a foot. It's got issues, but this tone arm is just beautiful. I was thinking maybe I could add that on to some other device, possibly. Anyhow, I'll compare that to over here to, oh wait, I don't have the Yamaha, but the Yamaha has a straight tone arm. Anyhow, on to this unit right here. This is something I picked up just a couple weeks ago at Goodwill. I saw it sitting there. It weighs 50 pounds. I knew it was a high-end unit, so I just bought it. It was like 40 bucks, I think. And the coolest thing about this, actually, it's kind of hard to get the right lighting in here, I know. The coolest thing about this, it's an Onkyo Integra TX DS939. It came out in... Of course, I can't play music right now because, you know, get a copyright strike. But this little button right here, push it, and you have to help it a little bit. I had to fix it. Door pops open. It's got a little control panel, and lighting comes down in there. It's really cool. And I got that for 40 bucks at Goodwill. And when this unit came out in the 90s, it was, I think it was $3,000 new. I couldn't believe it. I was like, God. And, you know, it becomes irrelevant to people because it's, you know, it doesn't have any HDMI inputs. And there was one issue where it buzzed. It had a hum, and I couldn't get rid of it. So I brought it out here in the garage, and I thought I'll use it as a secondary stereo. But I ended up turning the subwoofer off through these controls, and that fixed the problem. Which wouldn't work indoors because I use a subwoofer in the house, so it's perfect for out here. And on top of that, I have this, which is a Voca Pro DVX or DV6 888K. It's a karaoke player. It's about, I think they were like 450 bucks, but I bought it for like, I think it was 30 bucks at Goodwill. You turn that on, and I have it basically hooked up to just a computer monitor right here. So if we decide to do karaoke, as cheesy as it may sound, we're ready for that. Or I can just play regular CDs on it, DVDs, whatever I want. Here's one of the RTR speakers. I'm just going to shift on over here because I removed the cover from one so you could see what they're all about. Now, I picked these up off of Craigslist. It was kind of a secondary sale. I was buying something else, and this guy was like, hey, you want some speakers for 50 bucks? And when these came out in the 70s, they were $1,700, which really means nothing in the long run, because eventually your phone and your surrounds get weak, and most people don't bother replacing it. They trash it. These are pretty beat up. You know, the domes are a little bit messed up, but that doesn't affect performance to me at all. Both of these cones have been refoamed. I can see it. One of them was blown on the other speaker, so I replaced it with one of these over here. I'll just point to it. This is the SP2500X speakers. They have a really tight bass. In other words, this one has a passive subwoofer, it looks like on the bottom, but I'm not sure. This one has a super tight subwoofer. And the way they did that, with Sansui did it, was instead of having the foam come out, it's not, it's concave, not convex, which is really interesting. Maybe I'll get a little close-up on that, if I can. It's kind of hard to see. It's a pretty badass speaker setup. I've been using those in my home setup for a really long time. Yeah, they're 5 ways. It has a little balance knob for controlling, you know, the tone and everything. So, anyhow, those are the main speakers that I use out here. And I also have down here, I actually found, when I was digging through the garage, I ended up finding 3 pairs of these. So I have 6 of these. And those are the Bose 301s, which they're great little bookshelf speakers once they're all broke in. And they're totally dirty and dusty and hashed. And I think I got most of them at Goodwill. So, and that's about the majority of what I have out here. I just found this today when I was digging through the garage, up on the shelf, and it's a little Panasonic radio.
I'll never forget what you look like.
Sounds amazing. I mean, so I looked it up, and I found these go for, you know, $100 or more for a nice one, and I was like, wow, just for an old crappy 70s or 80s radio. But then this one here, which is like they have several different channels, like Citizen Band and stuff like that, but you know, I really like that kind of stuff. I just love the novelty of it. While I'm thinking about it over here, one of the coolest things about this receiver setup is I mounted it on a turntable itself. It's a rotating table. So if I need to work on the back of it, I can just turn the whole thing instead of having to like pull the 50-pound stereo around or walk around back every time. And over here I actually have just my bass. I used to play bass. I haven't played in a while, but I just love it. And we've got a little drum machine over here as well. And then if we come back to here, this is the Bas BR1180, phenomenal 8-track recorder. And we've got a Shure microphone back there and a little Tascam voice recorder, which I use for, this is amazing. I use it for inputting, just have an input cord from whatever I want to record, and it records really, really high quality. And so that's my stereo setup for the garage. I thought I would just share it with you. There's a lot more stuff that I do have, but you know, I like to say I consider myself an audiophile, you know. And it's funny because I read an article where somebody was saying, you know, like it started off that way. He's like, I like to consider myself an audiophile, but some people seem to think that means that you have to spend thousands of dollars on equipment, and that's just complete nonsense. He said, it's nice if you can spend, you know, $100,000 on your stereo, good for you, but most of us weren't born with a silver spoon, and we haven't earned a silver spoon either. So you know, I guess that's not fair to anybody who's, you know, if you make your millions and you want to spend it on stereos, that's great, but what I'm saying is being an audiophile is not dependent upon how much money you've spent. In fact, I would think you're smarter if you're going for the actual sound. You're willing to sacrifice a little bit, you know. If you have big old wrapped up cables, you know, totally oxygen free, you know, hand woven by gnomes in northern Finland or something, it doesn't mean shit. It really doesn't, because anybody will say just a regular pair of 14 gauge speaker cables or lamp cord would work just fine. In fact, some people just use Romex, you know, household cable. If a speaker works, it works. You know, once you get up to 18 gauge, it starts to get thinner. Of course, you're not going to want to power large subwoofers, but it's good for people that want to spend money, but it kind of scares people off from wanting to get fine, good sound. The stereo I have, or thinking they can afford good sound rather, the stereo I have in my bedroom is a little tiny Denon. It's a UD M30, and I found it at Goodwill for I think $10, or maybe it was $20 with the remote. And it's actually a small receiver, but you know, amplifier, but it's only like something like 10-20 watts per channel. It's just basically meant to run 2 little bookshelf speakers, and it has a pre-out for a subwoofer. That thing sounds so amazing. I hooked it up to these 2 speakers I got for $10, plus that for $20. And I had it in my office one day, and I was listening to an album, and I was like, you know, working the music. I was like, wait, this sounds freaking amazing. You know, it wasn't that I was listening to my new equipment, convincing myself that it sounds amazing. It was that it drew me in because I could hear it. And then I started, you know, I've learned to be honest with myself and what really sounds good. I know what I like. I know what sounds good to my ears, but I also have a pretty good idea for soundstage and presence and clarity within music. I know if the speakers aren't angled right. I know if the treble's too high or the bass is too low. Especially if I'm using my my stereo test type albums where I'm aware of them, you know, some old Pink Floyd, things like that. You know, Steely Dan. I know what certain songs sound like, and I can compare stereos. And to me, I am honestly like just appalled when I go to somebody's house who has like a huge, you know, 60-inch television, all wall mounted. All the badass features and remote and cable and everything else, and they're playing it through nothing more than the speakers on their television. Like, I know there's some good TV speakers out there, but hey, I'm sorry, they're just nothing compares to the presence of an actual stereo system. Which, I should make a side note, that doesn't mean you have to have surround sound, because I find that a little bit overrated. I did set up some surround speakers on my system, but only 2, on one left and right. This whole, you know, cinema, you know, 11.1 or 11.26, all these different, they're just confusing, a whole bunch of different formats. It really comes down to, you know, you don't have, buying those little package kits, satellite speakers and everything, that's just not for me. I think they all sound like crap. They sound tinny and small. It's about feeling out the size of your room and what works for you. So, like out in the garage here, I can't even really fully embrace these speakers, because if I turn it, I don't even turn it up, you know, to the 0 mark. It starts at like negative 20 decibels or whatever. It's so damn loud, you know, and I don't really play it that loud. And that's one of the things. Some people say, oh, I like to crank my stereo up. It's like, well, I have stereos I can do that with, but a majority of the time I'm listening to listening volume or lower. And the interesting thing about that is it's actually it's harder to get good sound out of speakers when they're very quiet sometimes, to get those subtle sounds and the little nuanced, like simulated surround sounds come a long way. You know, DTS, surround sound, you know, decoders and all that crap. It's just, I'm a steak and potatoes, meat and potatoes kind of guy. I like very simple equipment, you know, that I know works. So anyhow, I'm just rambling at this point. Yeah, just wanted to share my stuff, and happy holidays, everybody, and talk to y'all later.